All right, I believe we are officially live. Hello, Arty Peoples, and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein, and I'm your host this evening. And as you can see, I have a guest with me.
Greetings.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. This is Greg Watson. He is the Material and Application Specialist for Golden, which is amazing. I'm excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
So excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Just so before we officially begin, though, just as a reminder to everybody, if you are interested in everything that Greg is going to be showing us today, make sure you go to the website, jerrysartarama.com, and in the search bar, type in the code JL213. That is today's class code, JL213. So it should pull up the teacher's card, and everything that he's showing should be in there, so you can just check it out that way. But without further ado, please, Greg, take it over and let's see what you got.
Okay, thank you. So happy to be here. Again, my name is Greg Watson. I'm a Materials and Applications Specialist here at Golden Artist Colors. I've been here for about 6 years. I'm an oil painter through and through. So happy to be joining Jerry's Facebook Live. Jerry's does carry the entire line of Williamsburg colors in 37 and 150 ml tubes, but recently started carrying our oil paint in larger cans this size. This is a 237 ml and a 473. So if you're up for, buying large quantities of paint and looking for that discount through bulk purchasing, consider buying a big can. You can open it up. You can take this and retube it, put a little oil on top after you open it up, pour that oil off and scoop out what you need for that session. You can go and use these big cans and be successful in the studio there. A little overview of what we're going to look at tonight. We're going to dive into the Williamsburg line of colors. We're going to talk about pigment grind, opacity transparency, a little bit about tinting strength. We will look at some signature colors that we have in Williamsburg, including our iridescent interference colors, which are amazing. And then we're going to look at mediums and layering, a little, a brief overview of mediums, maybe sort of how to think about layering with mediums, and talk about solvent-free cleanup and how you can clean your brushes without using solvents. Okay. Golden Artist Colors is a small company, really. We are a employee-owned company. We have about 200 employees. We have 4 chemists on staff, about a dozen artists, including the materials and application team, our education director, and some of the other staff. And so we really do try to come to the act of making art materials and look at that from all angles. We also rely on you as our end user to stay in touch with us, to communicate with us about our materials, get in touch through email or on phone, and let us know what you think. Send us your questions, your comments. That's what we're here for. And if you ever have any product issues, of course, send them our way. Don't think twice. Okay. So I think we'll go down to a little bit of a tabletop view here, and I'll show you this color chart. Williamsburg has over 170 colors to select. We have about 14 cadmiums that live over in this yellow to dark purple range, 12 cobalts that span through your typical cobalt blue into these beautiful greens. And what do we have? Cobalt green, cobalt violet light deep, and cobalt yellow. These are really unique, transparent, beautiful colors that can be added to your palette. We have about 50 earth colors that you see in this section here. Okay, these are all European earths that are sourced naturally from France and Italy. We also have 11 colors that are ground in safflower oil. I didn't mention the majority of our colors are ground in alkali refined linseed oil. These 11 are ground in safflower oil. And down here, you have your interference and iridescent colors. Okay. One of the things that Williamsburg is really known for is a beautiful buttery feel. So I'm just going to knife out some of these colors while we chat. You can see with this titanium white here, beautiful buttery feel, kind of soft. People like Williamsburg because you can oftentimes just use it right out of the tube. You don't really need to modify it often. So it's sort of soft enough that you can brush it directly. Look at that, it's gorgeous, juicy. This is a yellow ochre, cerulean blue. The other thing that Williamsburg has as a unique feature is what we call the pigment grind. You can see on the cerulean blue, as I knife that down, some of the pigment starts to show through. See, as I strike it across this laminated card, you can see that pigment starting to shine there in the undertone. That is unique to this line of colors. And we're gonna look at that here next. Dioxazine Purple, this is our Egyptian violet right here. It's so strong, so potent. This stuff will knock your socks off. So this is a good example, this side by side of Diox and cerulean blue. A little teaser for the pigment strength thing. You can almost tell just by looking at that Diox that is going to be an extremely potent color. And the cerulean blue, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, a little bit of a easygoing, mild-mannered color that you can use to make subtle adjustments. All right. I want to talk about what we use to make our paint. We are completely open with the ingredients that we have in our colors. Of course, there's some proprietary aspects to that, but we do like to share this stuff with our customers. What's in the paint? Let me just let that pause for a second here so that it'll come to focus. What's in the paint, and so that you know. I mean, that transparency is important, I think, for you to feel confident in using the materials. So as I mentioned, the majority of our colors are ground in linseed oil. This is alkali refined linseed oil, which means it goes through a chemical refining process. Linseed oil, as you may know, is made from flaxseed. Okay, so it is a flaxseed oil that has been processed. Okay, it's a drying oil. It's the most robust and durable of the drying oil types. Of course, the dried pigment. Okay, and all of our colors have a little bit of beeswax in it. This is little beeswax clusters. I could pull that apart. It's a soft, material that has a lot of flexibility to it. We put that in the paint. We melt it into the oil a little bit, just to give the oil a little bit of a jellified quality. You always need to put a little bit more oil than what the pigment needs to make a basic paste, so that it makes for a nice feel. Okay, so a little bit of beeswax. We also put a little functional solids in, like a calcium carbonate, which is chalk, and barium sulfate beyond the colored pigment, which are rather transparent, but they give a nice buttery feel to the paint that makes up for a more enjoyable experience. Also can help with drying, and to have so that the surface doesn't maybe have so much tackiness to it on some of the synthetic organic colors. Okay, so let's talk about the pigment grind. So Williamsburg was developed by a painter. We purchased this brand from a gentleman called Carl Plansky, or Carl Plansky's sister, after Carl passed. And he was an artist. He was an expressionist painter who made his own paint. And so as he learned to make paint, he started to understand that the color can have a very unique quality depending on which pigments were being used in the formula. And so he found that the paint could have very smooth qualities, like this King's Blue here. This is a blend of Thai white and titanium white and Prussian phthalo blue and ultramarine. Sorry, a little bit of a fog there. And it's got a very smooth, buttery feel. It's breaks off really nicely when you work the knife through it, compared to a color like this, which is Stille de Grand, which is a synthetic transparent iron oxide. And you could see that this breaks off almost immediately when I pull my knife from the surface. But look at that quality as I drag the paint across the surface there. This is in our grind category, very fine. This is very coarse. So these are the extremes of the pigment grind. What we're talking about here is a quality to the paint that can be very expressive. You can use this stuff to your benefit as an artist to change the sheen of a color, to offset one color against another, not only with the color itself, but with the texture of the color. So it's called the palette of texture. Go on to our website under resources, and you can find this chart here. This is the textures of Williamsburg handmade colors, and it basically breaks all the colors into very fine, fine, medium, and coarse. These are the 4 categories that we have for our line. And as you can see, most of the colors fall into very fine and fine, but we do have these medium and coarse that can really add a nice dynamic to your painting practice. So let's bring in a little group of colors here that we can look at. I think I want to use some earth colors to discuss the grind, because this family of colors has everything from very fine through coarse. The grind exists throughout the whole line, but earth colors really do a nice job expressing this quality. So we have Mars Violet, Yellow Ochre Domestic, French Light Sienna, and Italian Terre Verte. Okay, so I'm gonna just move those to the side there, and I have these on a laminated card, and I'm gonna knife them down. It's got a little dusty here. The Mars Violet is very fine. So you can see when I knife that down, other than that little crumb that got in there from the neck of the tube, that this has a really fine quality to it. This is a synthetic iron oxide pigment. All of our Mars colors are totally opaque. When you see Mars on our colors, you'll see that they're totally opaque colors. Mars Yellow Light, Mars Yellow Deep, Mars Red, Red Light, and the Violet, Mars Black. They're all super smooth like this and really opaque. Synthetic iron oxide colors. Yellow Ochre Domestic. This is a natural iron oxide. It starts to have a little of that quality of the pigment in it. When you go close, you can start to see, let me get that knife out of the way. You could start to see some of that grind express itself there. We have here the mastone. See that at the tip of my knife, the thicker area we call mastone, and then where it's shining through on the card, we call that undertone. So where you see the undertone, you start to see the pigment expressing itself a little bit. It's not too bad. And for the most part, this is not something that you're going to really notice. But what it does is, as it dries, it can provide a little bit of a reduced sheen when the pigment is start to express itself like that. This is French Light Sienna. All of our French and Italian colors fall into medium category, medium grind. And this is just when you're pulling it tight like that. You see that little scraping quality. But it's really fun to work with these colors. They have a soft feel that's super buttery, and they worked great for like brushing applications where you want to leave a little brush stroke. And I'll do a little brushing on these here in a second. This is Italian Terre Verte. You can see how easily I can move my knife through that surface. Look at that grind right there. That's amazing. When I first started working with these colors, I didn't realize that the grind could be so helpful, so interesting, so dynamic. But as I've learned to work with these earth colors, it starts to kind of come to life when you use these in paintings. You can take the tube and just draw directly with these colors and make beautiful line work that dries to a satiny finish. And when you use them with, well, I can just use my knife for this. When you use them in like thicker applications like this, instead of drying to a glossy sheen, which some colors do, like this one here, if I were to use this Mars and leave it with a little bit of knifing to it, it'll dry to a glossy sheen. Now that's fine if you like that, but if you wanted to have a little texture on your surface like the Terra Verde over here, because of that medium grind, it starts to have a reduced sheen, and so it looks like satin or it looks like velvet, okay? So you can use the color for what it is coloristically, but you can also start to develop some expression in your painting utilizing the grind. All right, but that's not it. We also have a coarse grind, which then takes this whole pigment grind thing to the next level. This is brown pink on the right here, and it's among the coarsest colors we have. So I'm just going to sort of take this and do a little drawdown. This is like that Stille de Grand that we showed you at the beginning. It's super velvety in the mass tone here, and then when you pull it down and you get it like a tight knifing on that, it starts to have this screaming red color that comes through. And I'm looking for the light there on this card, and there it is. You could see that the sheen is really reduced and kind of knocked back. So it's really velvety. For those of you who might paint dark backgrounds or do dark sections of a piece, you might have noticed that a lot of dark colors are really glossy. They're really greasy looking sometimes. You can use brown pink, Dutch brown transparent, Stille de Grand, the Italian pink. Those are all our coarse colors. You can use those in the dark areas you're painting, and you could set off detailed areas by having these velvety dark sections, which is amazing. So play with that, try these out. On the other end of the spectrum, we're gonna take this same pigment, and when we mill it fine, it looks like this. That wasn't the prettiest knife out there, but let me just get that going. This is transparent red iron oxide. All right, this is the brown pink pigment milled extra fine. So this is a very fine color, and you could see that it's uber transparent. So let's get a little close up on that actually so that we can show you. Look on the left, that's the transparent red iron oxide. You could see that gloss on that color. On the right is the brown pink. If you were going to use a color and you wanted to do an imprimatur or some sort of a glaze over your gesso or something to get a painting started, maybe a wipeout technique, the transparent red iron oxide is the color that you might want to go for. Look at how beautifully rich and saturated it is in the thinner application, where the Stille de Grand has a little bit of that grind coming through. If you wanted a color like the Stille de Grand to provide a little bit of a texture, so to give you a surface to have some do a little scumble, you could utilize the brown pink for that. So if I wanted a nice smooth application, I could work the brush over my transparent red and I could get a nice smooth application. When I drag my brush or I do a little scumble over my brown pink or any of my coarse colors, I start to develop this really staccato kind of airy, atmospheric effect here, okay? So utilizing these colors for their satiny sheen or for some of the painterly effects that you can get in that on that surface is really what it's all about with the grind. Expressive opportunity in your painting practice to go all in with some of these unique colors from Williamsburg. All right. Any questions real quick as we get going here? We're going to stop a couple times throughout as we move from section to section just to take some questions. Emmy, anything going on?
We definitely do have a couple questions. And we forgot to remind everybody that there is a materials and application specialist in the chat as well. But I still want to ask those questions that they were popping in there.
Okay.
These paints, are they on the professional side, and are they archival with the light fastness?
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much for asking. Yes, they are professional oil paints. We try and get as much pigment into the paint as is possible, while still sort of making a stable material that is going to be a pleasure to use and is not going to have issues with drying. Okay, we don't put filler into the paint. What we use is that calcium carbonate, that barium sulfate, as I discussed, only as much as we would need to make the paint function properly. Okay, so that's in terms of pigment load. You're going to find that these colors are as strong and as able as any that you've ever come across. In terms of light fastness, you can find the light fastness ratings on each of our tubes. It's always on the back. When you look at the tube here, Todd, can we do an up? Thanks, buddy. When you look at the tube, you'll see that LF and it'll say 1 there. That's the light fastness rating for this particular color. Okay, and it's on our color charts. It's on our website. You can check into that. We do have a couple colors in the line that are have less than great light fastness. We have a couple that are in the 2 range, and then which is good, which means there's going to be some change over the course of 100 years gallery lit conditions. That's how we judge these things. And then we have a couple that are called fair. And fair is you're going to see noticeable change over the course of the lifetime of the paint when used in certain ways. For example, we have alizarin crimson, which when used in glazes or tints has fair light fastness. You will see that that will fade over time. It can be improved with a UV varnish. But when used in mass tone, thicker, like we showed with the mass tone, a thicker application, it's actually quite stable. So we leave that color in our line because it's a historic color that some people can't do without, and they love it.
I don't blame that. Now, speaking of the label, though, I know you called out the light fastness rating on there, but is the grind called out on the label at all?
It is not, and I'm sorry for that. We've really struggled with trying to get as much information on the label as is possible.
But you do have swatches of the paint, though, on there, right?
Yes. Oh, Emmy, thank you so much. Yeah, you're just taking it to the next level. This is great. So yes, this is all hand painted swatch here. Okay, so you can see as you look close to this if it has a little bit of grind or not. This is a semi-opaque color. Anything that's not totally opaque, we use this serpentine pattern. Okay, and you can start to see through there, and you can see what the undertone looks like. If there's going to be a little bit of grind, you'll see it on the label. See how that label starts to show that texture? This is the brown pink. I wrote coarse on there. It doesn't say that from on the rack, but you can see that grind is apparent there. So yes, all hand painted. We have information on our website or our product guide for the grind. And again, go to the website, look and see for that pigment grind chart, and you can get all the information you need from there.
Nice.
Okay.
And I believe your moderator also put the pigment grind in the chat below. So there's a link
Awesome.
that they can just click on if they want to check that out. But we did have my personal question, because I am familiar with Williamsburg paints, but I haven't messed around so much with using the coarse grind pigments. How easily is the coarse grind kind of integrated with more of the finer colors? Do they mix kind of well, or is it kind of hard to integrate them?
If you have a very, if you're doing very smooth painting and you have a lot of detail worked into the piece, let's say you use medium in your colors and you want there to be very precise brushstroke, you don't want to have any surface effect coming from the paint itself, then use the fine or very fine colors. If you like to have a little brushstroke going, the coarse colors are going to mix beautifully with everything on the palette. No problem there. But it'll show a little bit of that grind in the mixtures. There's no doubt. So it'll catch a little light. And if you're leaving a little brush stroke, it's actually really nice to have it catch the light like that. But if you want really smooth, fine, precise detail in your piece, then go with fine or very fine stuff.
That is awesome to know.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Definitely. Not trying to sell anybody on something that is not going to benefit the studio. But yeah, but this stuff is there as an option for those who might be interested, you know?
So I think that's all of the questions we have for right this second. And of course, if we missed any, we are going to go back through and make sure to answer them. But before we run out of time, I wanted to let you keep going.
No, it's great. We have a ton of stuff to go through. So for the next round, we're gonna look at our traditional color set and our modern color set, just to do a little unbox here, so you see what these look like. You know, it's a 37 ml white with 11 ml tubes that are in the color set. So check these out on our website. Mike, you can post some of our the link to those pages where you can see the color list here. Okay, we're going to talk about transparency, opacity next, and what that might do for your painting practice. Now, this is information that's pretty universal. This is something that is not just limited to Williamsburg. You're going to find this information useful no matter what brand you use. Opacity, transparency, basically it's the ability for light to travel through the film, or whether or not light just bounces right off the surface. What I have here is both ends of the spectrum. Alizarin Orange, really transparent. I have it drawn down over this black and white card, and you can see right through this 6 mil drawdown. That's about the thickness of 2 sheets of paper, just normal office paper. All right. This is totally transparent. Over here is King's Blue, the exact opposite. This is very opaque. What happens visually here is the light is just traveling through and bouncing off that surface into your eye. In this one, it travels all the way through the film, hits the surface underneath, and then bounces back through. So this gives the appearance, as you build layers of transparency on your piece, of a deeper, more rich kind of space, deeper space in the picture plane. This is right on the surface. Opacity, think about like the Impressionists and how they built their paintings up, where they were doing opaque brush strokes, one right next to the other. These are the symbols that we use to describe opaque, semi-opaque, semi-transparent, and transparent. As we mentioned before, when we were looking at light fastness, the light fastness here, right next to that, you'll see the transparency opacity symbol there on the paint. That's on our product guide. It's on our color chart right underneath the color here, right? Opaque, opaque, transparent, etc. So you can get that information all over the place, and it's really helpful when you're making some decisions about your color. All right, so I wanted to draw some of this down over top of these stripe lines. We're going to work with Cad Red medium, really opaque, Perm Yellow deep. This is semi-opaque, Egyptian violet, semi-transparent, and permanent crimson, which is a transparent color. So let's look and see what this can do for us in terms of opacity, transparency. So I'll just draw this Cad down over this, and I'll pull it a little tight so you can try to see how tightly I have to pull that against the surface with the knife in order to start to see that black line shine through. All right. With any sort of thickness, this begins to cover up the black line. And that's what Cads are known for. They're really dense, really opaque, beautiful heavy metal colors. Okay. Permanent yellow deep. This is airlight yellow. It's a Hansa yellow. You may have remembered, if you're a golden user as well, you may have remembered that we removed the Hansas from our golden line because they had light fastness issues. Emmy, you were asking about that. They didn't have issues with light fastness in the Williamsburg oil binder. It has something to do with the binder in which the paint is, the pigment is contained. And the oil binder didn't show issues. So we still carry the Hanses in Williamsburg. The PY3, which is the permanent yellow light, is a light fastness too, but it's always been, and we know that about that color. Okay, so you can see as I pull this a little tighter, you could start to see some of those lines shining through there. It's a beautiful kind of diarylide type yellow right there. This is the semi-transparent Egyptian violet. You can't see the black lines through there, but you can start to see the white lines. And this is a hard one. Maybe it's a little unfair because it's so saturated, it just looks like black. But you can see that white starting to shine through there. We've always had a hard time determining light transparency, opacity with some of these really dark, saturated, rich colors, because even in thin films, they look black, you know, but when you pull that tight, it's got a beautiful translucency to it. Almost transparent, but it's got a little haze in there that's going to keep it from being like crystal glass, you know, or stained glass type of appearance. The permanent crimson, on the other hand, really transparent. Look at how beautiful that is. I mean, I can even put a fairly thick application of the permanent crimson and it just looks like amazing. I don't know what the word is for that. Just incredibly rich, translucent paint. Just to sort of take that to the next level, I want to put a little oil on here. Boop, boop, boop. I'm dripping a little linseed oil here. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to grab a little of the Cad Red. And I'm just going to let that down a little bit. So you can see that when you let it down with some oil, that's kind of what you get there. Get some brushes here. Come over, I'll grab this Perm Yellow Deep. Little less hazy, and I'm putting more color on there, but still I can see through that, okay? Okay. Let's check this Diox out. This stuff is amazingly potent. I might have to make a little space here for this guy. But there it is. I mean, we are essentially making a glaze right here, okay? We're taking the color, we're adding binder to it, and we're drawing it down really thinly. So semi-transparent. And then this last one here is the Perm Crimson. And I'm going to try to put a bunch of color on there, but that's just amazing. All right. So the transparency and opacity of the color that you select is really going to have an impact on the way the color functions on your palette. Okay. You can use the opaque colors often to set up the painting, to start to get values and colors organized. And then a lot of people will come over top with transparent colors to put some glazes on and modify some colors. So let's talk about that a little bit, what a glaze can do. This is some ultra blue right here. I'm going to grab a little bit of this linseed oil, and I'm just going to sort of let this ultra blue down, and we'll look at the glaze over top of, ooh, I want a little bit more oil than that. We'll look at the glaze on top of these colors. You can utilize these transparent colors to do optical mixing. So nice thin application of oil-rich color on top of this opaque paint can give us a little optical mixture there. I don't know if it comes across on the screen at all, but this in the right environment would start to look like a purple. Oops, that didn't help.
It definitely, no, it definitely does. We can see that that's coming across as purple, and then that one's coming across more as like a green.
Okay, yeah, so totally, you know, a green mixture with the yellow and the blue there. But I don't know, it looks a little washed out. Maybe pull that back a little bit, Todd, do that. And then the opaque colors are perfect for scumbling and pulling across these surfaces to you know, work them just as a dragged color, opaque color, you know, nice thick applications. If you did this with really transparent colors, you'd get a more, you know, dark, greasy kind of look to it, which sometimes you want that. There's your ultra blue right there. Anyhow, I think you get the idea there. So that is transparency, opacity. They can bring a lot of different effects to your work, and be sure to check that out on the tube so you know what you're getting into. We sometimes will get artists who call up and say, hey, this color is not functioning the way I expected, and it has to do with the actual quality of the pigment and what its natural tendency is. And it's all about the pigment. Again, it comes back to the pigment and what it brings to the table, right? Williamsburg's pigment forward. So we don't try to sort of mask that and make it a unified quality. We try to let it shine on its own. Emmy, any questions about transparency, opacity, or to catch up with grind before we move on to pigment
yes, we did
strength?
have a couple of quick questions. The ones that they actually put them back in the comments because I wanted to answer them.
Okay.
With the grind aspect,
Yep.
will a coarse grind paint destroy any kind of a natural hair brush
No.
as you use it? It's not gonna.
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you were going to use something like our coarse or extra coarse pumice gel over from the golden side, if you were going to set up a ground and you had some pumice gel on the surface and you were using a natural bristle brush on that, yes, you can start to really destroy your bristles. Something like these coarse ground colors, they're still very smooth and silky on the surface. So as you drag your brush over that surface, it's not gonna hurt anything. It shouldn't, anyhow. It always hurts the brush when you're scrubbing away.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never had a hog bristle brush be able to handle that. But if you paint with a little bit more of a stroking technique, you should be fine.
Awesome. And then, do you have any of these paints that are mixed with safflower oil?
We have the Ardois Gray, which we will look at here in a minute. Yes, very next. And the Italian Terra Verte. Those are medium grind colors, and they are in safflower.
Very cool. And then the rest of them are in linseed, correct?
Yes, yes. Yeah, we don't have the other coarse ground stuff in linseed oil.
And then the last
safflower,
question,
in safflower.
Oh, yeah. The last question, though, was, what is the difference between semi-opaque and semi-transparent? Is there, because they're both very, very close.
It's true. It's true.
Does one lean more towards opacity and transparency, or?
I think that's just it. You know, it's just broken up into 4 categories. The semi-transparent is tending toward transparent more. You won't find too many semi-transparent colors in the line, actually. That's a category that I guess with pigments, it's just a little bit of an anomalous space that there's not a lot that fall into the semi-transparent category. You'll find more transparent, semi-opaque. A lot of the earth colors are semi-opaque because they have, the natural earths have silica and other contents that allow a little light to travel through, like sand. You can think of it like a sand or something. And then you'll find very opaque colors. Yeah, but not a lot of semi-transparent colors. Nice. No, that's something that we would struggle with, certainly.
Now, I do have the same question kind of popping up right now, just since we were on that subject. Okay. Why safflower oil? And I guess kind of what's the difference between that and linseed?
So this is great. Thank you. The safflower oil yellows less over time than linseed oil. So it's just the nature of that type of drying oil. It's actually right on the verge of being a drying oil. So it's sort of more categorized with poppy oil or walnut oil in the way that it yellows over time, or yellows less over time than linseed oil. These colors that we've decided to put into the safflower line are more vulnerable to showing that yellowing over time. So we have a couple blues in there and a couple pinks that if the yellowing were to sort of arise through the linseed oil yellowing and they're really transparent, then they would sort of tend to change color. The blues would go green, the pinks and purples would go brown. So it helps to keep them nice and bright over time. We recommend using those safflower colors thinly in the upper layers of a painting. Okay, that's their virtue, is that they're going to yellow less. So they're not, safflower is not as robust in oil as linseed. So by using them thinly in the upper layers, you're going to get the most benefit out of those colors. We don't recommend using those thickly. Okay.
Awesome. And I think that's all the questions so far.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about tinting strength here. Tinting strength, again, it's one of those things that, is going to be translatable or something that you'll find will impact any brand of colors that you have on your palette. All right. Tinting strength is the ability of a color to change another color. And I want to use these drawdown cards to discuss this with you. What we do to measure tinting strength is we take the color and we mix it with titanium white, 1 part color to 10 parts titanium white. All right. So easy concept, but you can really see that synthetic organics, the sort of the newer colors, the dioxazines, the phthalocyanines, the anthraquinone colors, they have incredible tinting strength. You can see that the color is, here, and then they're able to move that white to an extreme degree. Whereas if you go down the line here and you start to look at some of these other colors, like this raw sienna, like this ultramarine blue, even this cadmium in comparison, don't move the white as much as the phthalos do. So there's a whole range of tinting strength that you'll learn about and will give you, will benefit your painting practice. Why is it important? Well, you can only use a little bit of these colors in your mixtures, which is great because you don't need a lot. And then these colors that are more mild-mannered, like your earth colors, can be used as the base of a mixture. They can be used to create more paint with as the base. So I'll show you a little bit of what I mean. I'm just going to leave those colors there. I'm going to pull this card over. All right. What we have here is the permanent yellow light. Okay. We have 2 equal sized piles of permanent yellow light, French Ardoise gray, and then phthalo blue. All right. French Ardoise gray is a really low tinting strength color. It's beautifully transparent, as you can see from the band here. It is an earth color sourced from France. I'm just going to take this whole pile and stick it into this yellow here, and we'll mix that in. And I love showing French Ardoise gray because you can take that pile of yellow and transition it toward what still reads like a yellow, maybe on the green side of things. But as you all know, if you were to mix a little black or even Davies gray into yellow, you get to green really fast. What we have here is still potentially a chartreusey type yellow, but I just added quite a lot of French Ardoise gray to that permanent yellow light, and it only got me here. So I can use that to tweak my more brilliant colors real gently one way or the other. Whereas if I had something like phthalo blue, I'm just going to grab the teeniest amount of phthalo blue there and mix it into this pile. Same size pile of permanent yellow light. And I'm going into Greenville like no problem here. Super beautiful green, right? But look at how strong that phthalo is. And so a couple things to consider here. I have this teeny little bit of mixture here. I just used a ton of perm yellow light and the teeniest little bit of phthalo blue. So if I wanted to make a bigger pile, I want to go over here and use the Ardoise gray, use this to bulk out my pile. And then I don't know what's going to happen here, but I could then come into this pile mix some of that phthalo blue in. See what happens. Ooh. And I get a nice, gentle green that then I could walk over to this brighter green with more additions of yellow and blue. So it works as a subtle kind of tuning knob, right? I can take a color like the French Ardoise gray, or some of our other colors like cerulean blue or terra verde, some of our earth colors, and I can make these mixtures that are more subtle, tend to move more gently, and use them as my base. And then when I need the real pop, I can come in and make smaller mixtures with this, okay? So we're gonna move this right along. I think what we're gonna look at now is some of our signature colors. And then zippity-doo. We have a set of colors that are signature colors. As I mentioned before and when I was showing the color chart, we have about 30 colors that are unique blends in the line. Okay, so we just wanted to show you some of the ones that are in the signature set. We have, and they come in 11 mil tubes, but I'm going to show you here in these 37 mLs. Besides that Ardoise gray that we just looked at, brilliant yellow pale, this could be a beautiful substitute for white, alizarin orange, Persian rose, king's blue, which we looked at the beginning, Corby green, Italian lemon ochre, and Stille de Grand. Stille de Grand is one of those coarse colors that we showed you at the very beginning. It's actually a transparent yellow iron oxide. So let's start there, actually. I'll pull this down, and you can see what that looks like. All right. Undertone has this earthy tan look to it. You have that coarse ground, so it has a satiny finish. As the light catches that, it's almost like velvet. So if you're into that, this would be a great color for you. Italian lemon ochre. This is the brightest yellow ochre we have in the line. It's got a medium grind to it, and it makes a beautiful contribution to landscape palette, portrait, whatever. It's just nice. I sometimes mix my white in with this and just kind of have it right there next to my white as a little side color. Corby Green, look at that, super dark. I don't know if you can see the green quality of that. I'm gonna mix a little white into that and show you what that's all about though. The Corby Green is a mixed color. All right, let me put a little white down the bottom here. Corby Green, grab that up and come in. It's got a bluish, it has Prussian blue in it. Okay, and if you know Prussian blue, then you know it's a strong, very cool greenish blue. So you can see what that Corby blue does, or that Corby green does when it's tinted. Looks awesome. Great for landscapes. If you're doing landscapes and you want to have some, shadows and stuff that you don't necessarily want to mix to, but you can just grab and go with the Corby green. Speaking of landscapes, there's your sky right there. King's blue. We saw that earlier.
Such a pretty color.
Oh my God, so good, right? I'm not going to tint that. Really, if you tinted that, if you were doing a landscape, just you could use the kings up at the top of the sky, and then as you headed toward the horizon, just add white, and you could make that happen. Talk about pretty colors right here. Persian rose. This is essentially, you could use this as a substitute for red. When I'm going for it in the studio, I often will not even have a red on the palette. I'll just use Persian rose. And then I'll come in and just grab some Persian rose. So it's like a mellow version of red. It's already like tinted. And you can just go toward these really screaming pinks and stuff. You wanted to make some big old bright cheeks on your Santa Claus painting. That's what you'd use right there, your Persian rose. But you could also do some amazing flower pieces with that. All right, I'm just we'll pull back a little bit and take a higher view of this. This is alizarin orange. This is a blended color, the transparent orangey color there. And I'll tint that one too. What the heck, we'll just do one more tint here just to show you.
That has
because
an
the
incredible yellow undertone. Ooh, that looks so pretty. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm drooling a
Oh,
little bit.
yes. Thank you.
It's so yummy, you know?
This here is so yummy. And that orange is hard to get to. You know, it's hard to find a brilliant translucent orange. Okay, but alizarin gives it to you. And then a brilliant yellow pale. We have a brilliant yellow pale and a brilliant yellow extra pale. All right. So if you wanted to have a color next to your white on your palette that's already warm, like super warm and has some color in it, you could do that. Just throw that brilliant yellow pale up there and you got yourself a white alternative. You can work that into all your mixtures. Everything would be harmonious because brilliant yellow pale is in everything. All right. So I'm cruising along here because we got, 10 minutes or so. And I got a big pile of stuff here to show you.
Okay, take your time. We are enjoying it.
Great. No, I'm happy. And what do you think about questions, Emmy? Are we good right now, or?
I think we're okay right now.
Perfect. Let's keep.
Everyone's just kind of oohing and awing over all those colors.
I wish we could do that all night long. Next time we'll do a specialty color session. We'll just basically knife through everything.
Yes.
So we have. So we have 6 iridescent colors in the line. Iridescent colors are they're mica-based colors that have an incredible shimmer. This is pearl. Okay, I'm just going to kind of pick them up and turn them over for you so you can see they shine like metal. Okay, they're not like leaf in that they're really smooth and flat metal. They have a little grainy to it, but look at that shine that you get there. So if you wanted to do a gold background on something or have little gold highlights on something, you can use these colors in tandem with your other oils. You could just work them right in there. And you can paint over top of these as well. This is silver, pewter. Pewter is like a duller version of silver. This is bronze, a little bit of a greenish thing. As I mentioned, they're mica flake. They have technology now where they can take the mica flake and coat it with iron oxide or titanium dioxide. And the way that the light goes through that dioxide film or oxide film and bounces off the mica flake causes these different colors to come into being. So it's amazing. And this is copper, okay? Beyond that, we have interference colors. Interference colors, again, they're mica, but they are coated, there it is, in such a way that makes them flash from one color. As you see them here, they look like dull, translucent color. And then when you see them in the light, they start to flash. This is red, blue, green, and violet. Okay, over white, they're super translucent, right? But you do get that flash. So if you're looking for colors that will catch the viewer's eye, and you're doing iridescent stuff like butterfly wings or fish underwater or just abstract stuff where you want to have something that is popping, go with these. These are where it's at. This is what it looks like when you paint the interference colors over black. All right, so over white, they'll do more of that flash back and forth. Well, they did a minute ago. Where is it?
I think it's the camera angle. It's hard to get those on camera sometimes.
Oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. Okay, forget it. You saw it. And then when they're in black, they stabilize, and so you see the color more effectively over the black surface. One thing about these colors that are completely awesome is they can be mixed with other transparent colors, so you can make these kind of like almost automotive nail polishy type finishes. All right, so here's like green gold and alizarin yellow with a little bit of pale gold. This is like a phthalo green with a pearl. You get the idea. This is a sort of it looks better like that. Let's stay there. This is a blue with a interference blue. So let me show you a little bit about how these mix. These colors are unique in that they're mixed but not milled. So we put all our colors through a mixer. That's how we get all the ingredients combined. And then we mill the stuff, which smooths it out. Okay, but these can't be milled because the mica flake would be broken and it would lose its effectiveness. So they're a little clumpy when they first come out of the tube, and oil does leak out of these a little bit. So you just have to bear with these colors. I'm going to put a little oil on them, and I'm going to mix the oil in. You can use any type of medium. Let's say you use a solvent-free alkyd medium. Use that. If you use an alkyd medium, that's fine too. But it's good to mix these with a little bit of medium because it smooths out the color. You can see how it was kind of clumpy before. When I medium them up and I let them down some, it starts to smooth them out. And I'm just going to show you, if you wanted to make mixtures with these, how you'd go about doing it. This is phthalo blue, so I'm just going to mix in the smallest amount. You want to use transparent colors when you make mixtures here, because opaque colors will start to cover the pigment, and it won't have that shimmer that it normally would. All right, so you can kind of do something like this where you add a little color in and you can get some pretty rad mixtures. Okay, and I'll do this one over here. This is gold. There we are. Oh, same thing. Look at the gold. The iridescence actually a little bit more clumpy even than the others. I like to use it like this. It dries really slow. And it's a little bit of a soft film, but I can't help myself. I will use it like right out of the tube like this, and I love it. Looks like a massive halo, or if I use silver, it's just like the like armor or something. I don't know. It's great. This is Quinacridone Magenta. If I just took a little bit of this Quin Magenta and mixed it in here, you can see that it starts to give us a rose gold type of quality. So you have these 6 iridescent colors to start with, and then you can mix them with any number of transparent colors to really max out that line. All right. So you have this kind of look right there. So check those out. It's great. Iridescent interference colors made with mica flake. All right. Now we're going to look at mediums. Any questions, Emmy?
We had one.
right.
Is the mica in those, is that archival?
It is. Yeah, it's very stable.
Nice.
It's a natural mineral material. So a lot of the stuff that we get from the earth, some of your iron oxides, the mica, are really robust. Okay, and they can hold up really well against light and aging. All right, but you do want to use them with a little medium. Sometimes a faster drying medium is important to mix into those iridescent interference colors because they're slow to dry. So if you add a little medium to it, if you add something that's going to dry a little faster, it'll keep you from becoming frustrated with those colors. So do a little testing before you work it into your piece. Okay.
Perfect.
Let's talk about mediums. Speaking about mediums and alkyds and using alkyds for your work to add a little bit of durability to the paint layer. We have Alkyd Resin, which is a slow drying product. It comes in this container. It contains solvent. When products contain solvent, you'll see a warning like this: combustible vapor, harmful. Okay. So I can't use this in this room. I can't open this up and show you what it looks like when I move it around, but I can show you in this glass jar, and you can see as I turn it over that it's a very resinous material. It's almost like stand oil, how it works. I don't know if that's coming off, but it does. It's like you can see that as I turn it, I can keep up with the material that's falling off the edge, okay? It dries to a beautiful sheen. This is ultramarine blue with the Alkyd resin in it. This is the color directly out of the tube. That's it with the resin mixed in there. So you can see that it increases transparency and really gives a nice gloss. And it's really hard. Okay, that's one of the nice things about Alkyd resins. It's flexible, but hard. Okay, so if you've used stand oil in the past and you know what it's like to have that rubbery, oily quality, then you might not like that. If you wanted a harder film, then the Alkyd resin might give that to you. Here's a painting with a couple layers, 1, 2, and 3. On the second and third layer, we started to add a little bit of that Alkyd resin in there. You could see that the gloss and the sheen begin to come up with those additions. And it starts to give you a more of a saturated look. Okay. So great. We're just going to move right down the line here with this stuff. Hold on, let me grab this. Here's another medium that we have called extender medium. All right, extender medium is basically those solids that we talked about at the beginning, the barium sulfate, the calcium carbonate. They call it marble dust here, but that's basically what that is. Mixed in with linseed oil. All right, it's essentially filler. So if you wanted to bulk out your paint, you could use this gray stuff right here to make that paint bulked out. Let's show you what it does. Just going to take a little blob of this, come over here, add a little extender medium. I just do about a 1-to-1 here.
Is there a point where there's just too much extender?
Well, we recommend maybe a 1-to-1 ratio as a max, but you can, in colors that have, you know, a robust covering, tinting strength and covering power, like this Cad yellow medium here, you can go up a little higher than that. So let's say you wanted bright cadmium yellow color, a big swath of it on your piece, you can use some extender medium and bulk that out. If you were using a transparent color, it might not read as well. If you put extender medium, it'll start to make it look more opaque, and then it'll start to show some of the yellowing of the linseed oil over time. So keeping it down to that 1-to-1 ratio tends to work a little bit better with more opaque colors. Extender medium can really work for you and bulk out your colors. Really, the only thing that it does is it reduces the tinting strength a little bit, and it starts to matte out the surface some. Essentially, you would be making student grade paint if you add a lot of this to your colors, Emmy, okay? Wax medium. Bam, wax medium comes in a container like this, and it is not a cold wax medium. It is essentially thickened linseed oil, okay, with a little Damar resin in it. The wax is simply thickening that oil, so it gives it a bodied feel like this, so that it doesn't run all over your palette or make a big old mess. You can add that to your color, make glazes, increase gloss, and you know, and flow. Okay, you can make nice translucent passages with that wax medium. Okay. I do want to stress though, it's not a cold wax product. This is a cold wax inside the paint, and you can see that it really reduces the sheen. Our wax medium does not reduce sheen like a cold wax product does. We don't make a cold wax product, and this doesn't contain the linseed oil that the wax medium does. Okay, so those are some solvent-free options that you could bring into the studio: the extender medium, the wax medium. You also have stuff like you know, regular linseed oil, cold press and stand oil. You can just drip this into your paint a little bit as you're going to increase flow and gloss and make some glazes. All right. Real quick, I just want to go into solvent-free cleanup some. This is where, you know, we can try to get the solvent out of the studio. Cleanup is a big component of, let me keep that here actually. You know, cleaning up is, you know, one of the big points in the studio practice where you're gonna make get a little solvent in the air if you're using solvent to clean your brushes. So let's say I'm using this brush, I want to clean it up. Solvent-free cleanup is pretty straightforward. Just take as much of the paint out of your bristles as possible. I should have probably just kind of worked a palette knife there and got as much of that out of there as possible, because I could have saved some of that color. Do this. This is safflower oil, but you can use linseed oil or any sort of drying oil during the painting process. And I can just take this and begin to massage that oil into the bristles. You can use a glove for this if you don't want to get oil on your hands, but this is essentially vegetable oil. So it's not going to cause my skin any problems. Okay. If you're sensitive though, by all means, you should wear some gloves. And I'm just going to work that out of there. Just by dipping it into that oil and massaging those bristles, I can get the majority of the paint out of the brush. And for all intent and purpose, if I was just going to be working in underpainting, or I was still deep in that same color family, I could utilize that brush at this point and just move forward with adding more color to that brush and working it on the surface. If you really wanted it to be quite clean, you could come over here, and this is a silica oil right here. Emmy, you guys probably have this in your product line or something along these lines.
We definitely do.
Yeah, these are super handy. A lot of people put solvent in here, but I have oil in and I can clean my brush almost entirely just by dragging it over the surface. I wouldn't want to do that right when the brush is totally full, because the oil does take on the color and it doesn't settle as quickly as the solvent when you have color inside of your odorless. I can take this now to the sink if I wanted to, soap and water, clean that bristles off, shape it, and let it dry, and it'll be ready for our next session. The reason I mentioned using a drying oil during the painting session, like safflower or linseed oil, is if I inadvertently get paint in my bristles and I'm using that to paint on my piece, I want to make sure it's a drying oil. I don't want to use mineral oil for that point. I don't want to use canola oil or anything that's going to not dry. Okay, but at the end of the session, it's totally fine to use mineral oil, canola oil, any type of oil, as long as you're going to go and then clean your brush out entirely before your next session. Okay.
Soap and water, correct?
Soap and water, any of the brush cleaners that you have in your product line would probably work great. Yeah, but basically soap and water is the deal.
So you definitely want to make sure, if it's not a drying oil, to make sure to get that out of your brush before you go back to painting.
Exactly. You want to clean that out at the end of your session. A lot of people use mineral oil to clean with. They'll clean their brush at the end of the session, but you just want to make sure you don't bring that back to the painting in the next round. So go clean it out, get yourself some lunch, and then you can come back after that and start fresh. Okay.
Such a good tip.
Nice. All right. Any other questions before we wrap it up?
We do have a couple of questions,
Right.
and we are just slightly over time, so we have a little bit of extra time that we can go through them.
Okay.
So we do have one question about the extender medium. If you were to exceed that 1-to-1 ratio, what does that do to the drying time and the flexibility of the paint?
The extender medium does dry kind of on the slow side. It's probably in a thin film 4 to 5 days. So if it were a faster drying color, then it might slow it down some. If it were a slower drying color, it might speed it up. In terms of flexibility, there shouldn't be an issue there. It's got linseed oil binder in it. Those solids are perfectly stable. It might be a little bit of a softer film, but that 1-to-1 ratio should be good. Really, the biggest issue is yellowing. If you use it in a transparent color or you go well beyond that 1-to-1 ratio, you might begin to detect that yellowing a little bit over time, in months and years.
Yeah. And then we had somebody else asking if you use more than one type of medium in your painting. So like 2 or more.
Yeah. Me personally,
Yes.
or
I mean, if anybody can, I guess.
if you can. Well, I mean, we didn't really talk about, we didn't really talk about layering specifically. I think we could do a whole session on that. It's more
Really
of a
could.
technique. It's more of a technique thing, I guess. But some people will use different mediums throughout the painting process. Keep in mind that oil paint is an incredibly complicated material that is transforming chemically over the life of the painting. This means that it can change for decades, and even as centuries go by, the painting is shifting and changing. The oil paint is constantly cross-linking for the first several decades, and then as time goes on, those cross-link that web of fatty acid, the oil, is then breaking back down. So you have this thing that builds and then breaks down over time. So the more complicated the process you use, the more unknowns there are, right? So if you use the same medium throughout the layers, maybe a little bit less at the bottom and a little bit more toward the top, then the painting is going to have a consistent type of aging process throughout those layers. And those top layers, because they might have more medium incorporated, are going to tend to have a little bit more flexibility, and they're going to be able to shift with the stuff that's happening underneath. Okay, so as things start to age and tighten up and harden underneath, the layers up top might have a little bit more flexibility and give to get, give the painting what would it give the painting? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say what you get when you do that, other than it's just easier to sort of assess how it might age. If you use an alkyds at the base and then drying oils on top, that might be a possibility too. We just haven't done a lot of testing with that. Some people do that actually because it dries faster underneath, and then they'll use the slower drying linseed or other drying oils up top for more blending time. Mm-hmm. This seems okay because, I mean, there's the alkyd grounds and stuff that people use. These are harder, they dry faster, they cure a little bit quicker. So, I mean, there's not a lot of long-term research on these topics, but it might be okay as long as you're keeping track and you're thinking about it in a reasonable way.
Definitely. But I think that's all the questions that we do have time for. Great. Because they are a little bit over, but that was such an incredible presentation. Thank you so much for showing us everything.
We showed you everything.
Well, not everything, but we showed a lot. It was amazing.
We showed a lot. So yes, thank you, Emmy. And we encourage folks to reach out if you have questions or comments. You can hit us up at help@goldenpaints.com. You can call 800-956-6534.
Looks like the number is on the phone. Yeah.
There's all the stuff.
The number is up there. It's hard to remember numbers sometimes.
I couldn't remember. I usually it just rolls off my tongue. I don't know what the number is. Look on the tubes. Yeah. You'll see it there.
Yeah. So thank you again, though, for joining us. That was an incredible presentation. Again, everybody, if you do have any questions about anything that Greg went over, put your questions in the chat. We will be going back over them. Or like he said, you can absolutely email him at the email address that's over there on his screen. I believe his moderator also put it in the chat in case you're having a hard time reading that, because if you're like me and you don't have great vision, little font is hard. Yeah. But if you do want to rewatch this again, also this will be available on rewatching on Facebook as soon as this is over, but we will be posting this to YouTube within 24 hours as well, so you can rewatch it that way. But make sure that you guys do join me next week. I won't have Greg on, sadly, but I will be going over color theory in practice, which is going to be color temperatures and kind of going more beyond what that means and actually using it in a still life that is all blue, and it's going to be fun, and I'm going to make a mess. So I hope to see you guys then. And Greg, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Bye, y'all.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks so much. Take care.
If I can end it, maybe.